Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Business and Finance on Echo Television International. I am Sarah Elisha, your host. The rise in global inflation, the pressure on global inflation has largely been intensified by the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war and associated sanctions, which have pushed energy and commodity prices to multi-year high. And we are going to be looking at some of the issues of inflation and some of the global trade system, how it is and how inflation has affected that. But before we move further to the analysis, let's take a look at a little of business news at this hour. Kerosene price soared by 118%, fuels anxiety. And also stock investors lose 1.7 trillion naira in 1 week. Airfare rose by 69.87% in 1 year. This is coming from the NBS. Also, afforestation crucial to averting future flooding, coming from experts. Modi says that with $41 billion oil sales, Nigeria got only $5 billion downgrade rating. Let's move further to detail of the news. Household kerosene may go beyond the reach of poor Nigerians as the price of commodity has risen by 118% in the last 12 months. According to the National Household Kerosene Report of the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics for September, the average retail price per liter of the product rose by 118% to 947 naira from 434 naira recorded in September 2021. According to the report, the average retail price per liter of the HHK paid by customers in September 2022 was 947 naira, indicating an increase of 17% compared to the 809 naira recorded in August 2022. A breakdown of the report showed that on a state profile analysis, the highest average price per liter in September 2022 was recorded in Enugu with 1,272 naira, followed by Ebonyi with 1,264 naira and Cross River with 1,186 naira. On the other hand, the lowest price was recorded in Rivers with 686 naira, followed by Bayelsa with 715 naira and Nasarawa with 735 naira. In addition, analysis by zone showed that the Southeast recorded the highest average retail price per liter of the product with 1,128 naira, followed by the Southwest with 1,068 naira, while the Northwest recorded the lowest with 869 naira. The average retail price per gallon of the product paid by customers in September 2022 was 3,236 naira. On a year-on-year basis, naira. Still ahead, investors have lost 1.7 trillion naira at the end of the trading on the floor of the Nigerian Exchange Limited last week, following major dips in the Airtel Africa PLC, Better Glass PLC, and NEM Insurance PLC stock. The market opened the trading week with 25.91 trillion naira on October 14, 2022, with a close at 24.182 trillion naira on October 21, 2022. The depreciation was majorly caused by collective loss of 2.3 naira by the Airtel Africa, Better Glass, and NEM Insurance at the end of the week's trading to top the losers' log. Airtel Africa PLC led the losers chart, shedding 27.10% to 1,312 naira per share from 1,800 naira per share. Better Glass PLC share also dropped 9.98% to close at 41.50 naira per share from 46.10 naira at the opening of the trading week. The local closed in red, declining by 667 basic point or 6.7% week to date. The insurance index was the top loser, which declined by 370 PBS to end the week under review, while the value traded at 4.4 million naira and the volume traded amounting to 6.6 million units. Similarly, the oil and gas index declined by 150 basic points, with volume and value trading closing at 702, 745 units and 11.7 million naira, and the consumer good index, which declined by 90 pps, with volume and value trading closing at 3.3 mn units and 67.9 million naira respectively. The National Bureau of Statistics has stated that air transport rose by 96.87% in 1 year. In its report titled Transport Fare Watch for September 2022, the Bureau noted that the average from 96,922.97 naira in September 2021 on a year-on-year basis. According to the statistic body, on a month-on-month basis, it increased by 11.76% from the 65,041.89 naira in August 2022 to 72,990.54 naira in September 2022. Data from the report indicated that the average fare paid by commuters for bus journey within the city per drop increased by 2.19% on a month-on-month from 602.78 naira in August 2022 to 615.69 naira in September 2022. In another category, the average fare paid by commuters for bus journey intercity per drop rose to 3,790.06 naira in September 2022, indicating an increase of 0.27% on a month-on-month compared to the value of 3,779.96 naira in August 2022. On a year-on-year, the fare price rose by 44.61% from 2,620.90 naira in September 2021. Further analysis revealed that the average transport fare paid on Okada transportation was 434.73 naira in September 2022, which was 1.15% lower than the rate recorded in August 2022 on a month-on-month basis. Meanwhile, on a year-on-year, the Bureau noted that the fare rose by 41.79%, which compared with September 2021, which was 306.80 naira. The NBS added that the average fare paid for water transport, that is the waterway passenger transportation in September 2022, increased by 980.18 naira, showing a growth of 0.1% on a month-on-month basis from 974.26 naira in August 2022. On year-on-year, the fare rose by 15.44% from 849.06 naira in September 2021 to 980.20 naira in September 2022. A professor of geography, Olarina Orarije, the immediate past president of the Nigeria Institute of Building, Sunday Wusu, have stressed the need for government at all levels to encourage tree planting as a way of averting future flooding. They said the incident of flooding in most parts of the country was partly a result of climate change and human factor, but noted that effective climate action needed to be encouraged. The flood, which already put 2.5 million Nigerians, including 1.5 million children, at risk, according to the United Nations Children Fund, have led to the death of over 600 persons and displacement of about 1.4 million persons. Many states have expressed helplessness over the flooding, calling on the federal government and donor agencies to come to their aid. Also, Wusu, speaking in Lagos at the 31st Lagos Builders Conference and annual general meeting on Friday, said the government must discourage deforestation and encourage forestation and modern waste management. The event had the theme "The Shifting Landscape, Redefining the Real Estate Industry." He added, when the ground is void and erosion comes, everything will be carried away. it is hard for you to see a forest where erosion happens because there are vegetation there which holds together the soil. Clearing land and vegetation without paying awareness to flooding and wind is not advisable. Avoiding deforestation and recycling of wastes for reusage are still the most probable solution to flooding in Nigeria. Lastly, Modi, a global rating agency, has downgraded Nigeria's local currency and foreign currency long-term user rating as well as its foreign currency senior unsecured debt rating to B3 from the B2 and placed them on review for downgrade. Modi said the decision was driven by the significant deterioration in Nigeria's government finances as well as its external position, exerting increased pressure on the sovereign credit profile despite a strong increase in international crude oil price in the 2022. The rating agency added that its assessment was that the development and partly the result of weak governance are likely to last. It stated that the step fall in oil production in 2022 and the extension of the expensive oil subsidy have almost entirely eroded the boost to government revenue and export that would otherwise have been anticipated from higher oil prices. Adding to that, Modi noted that the policy level available to manage weak oil revenue and rising borrowing costs amid monetary tightening in Nigeria and globally were limited. Similarly, on the external front, it stated that the capacity of the Central Bank of Nigeria to protect foreign exchange reserve from external outflow has its limits. According to Modi, the initiation of the review for the downgrade is prompted by the risks that the ongoing fiscal and external deterioration accelerated weaken further the government capacity to service debt and thereby increases further its risks of default. Thank you for listening to the business news. We shall go on a little break, and when we come back, we shall look at some of the analysis concerning the global inflation. Do not go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still Business and Finance on Echo Television International, and today on the show we shall be looking at the rising global inflation. It's no longer a news that most countries presently are going through currency depreciation crisis, and with the way businesses are going, we shall be looking at what does this mean to actually businesses, looking at some of the climate change environmental effects, and also looking at government initiative, especially looking at some of the interest rates. We shall be looking at a graph actually trying to look at the inflation rate, especially in Nigeria from January down to September. And we would like to look at some of the inflation, how it has gone. From January, we have about 15.6%, which is the inflation data for January, and February we have 5.72%. And from March, it actually went down to 5.72%. And then in April, we had about 16.82%. In May, we have 17.72%. And in June, we have 18.6%. In July, we have 19.64%. And in August, we have 20.52%. And lastly, just last month for September, we had the statistic at 20.77%, which if you round it up will giving us about 21%, looking at the inflation rate. And lots of policies and also reasons have actually been the reason why we are having the inflation rate, especially first and foremost looking at, if we're going to look at money, talking about money, it will no longer news that Ghanaian currency have actually been rated as the worst currency so far. So we know what that means for businesses, especially where we have medium and small scale enterprises shutting down their shops because of the inflation pricing. Looking at some of the interest rate, we also have to look at electricity, which power has not been very stable, and possibly also looking at the climate change, looking at flooding that is not just in Nigeria, but also in most developing countries. And it's actually very, very sad that Nigeria has actually been rated the worst when it comes to flooding, with about 3,480 persons being affected by the flood, which is even more worse, because if we look at flooding in 2012 with the flooding that took place this year, we know that the flooding for this year was actually very, very high compared to that of 2012, even though, will I say, quite few states have been affected, but then it has done lots of havoc. We're going to look at possibility, the effects on food crisis. We know that during the last IMF meetings, where we had the issue where the World Bank is looking at how they can come to the rescue of most developing countries, how they can help them to avert the food crisis, because we know with the flooding, lots and lots of farmlands have been destroyed, properties have been destroyed because of the flooding, and definitely that will actually lead to the inflation we are having presently in the country. And there are a lot of underlying issues that the Nigerian government policies, the government policy, that have to look into how we can regulate the inflation. And also, just recently, last week, we saw where the Minister of Finance is planning on going a little bit higher on tax. Nigeria is paying higher. We have to look at going down on fuel subsidy, or actually, if we do not want to go into borrowing, looking at the debts of Nigeria, you know that we're actually almost 68 trillion naira debt, and we are also planning to go on more debts to actually look into how we can finance some of the 2023 budget that was just passed, read by the President Muhammadu Buhari. So a lot of issues have been literating here, and I have some of the statistics of some of the countries, looking at the 19 African countries that have been affected by the flood. And I rightly say that in Nigeria we have about 3,480 persons have been affected by the flood. In Chad, we have just 1,000 persons. The Republic of Congo, we have 163 persons. And we have the Democratic Republic of Congo, still we have 149. In Niger, we have 140 persons. In Gambia, we have 109. In Liberia, we have 89. And then in CAR, we have 70. In Guinea, we have 46. In Senegal, we have 26. In Cote d'Ivoire, we have 13 persons. In Ghana, we have 11. Finally, in Sierra Leone, we have just 9 persons that have been affected by the flooding. But we saw where reports have been going around that still more to come in November. We shall be having more flood. And this will bring to mind what steps the government are actually putting in place to make sure that the flooding does not affect, because the numbers keep going up and up and up and up. And we're looking at some of when you look at some of the bar chart, looking at our stock market, and also looking at our Naira, which keep depreciating, we are actually on the red alert presently. That means a lot needs to be done looking at the interest rate, because it's no longer going to be surprising, because I believe the CBN is actually planning to increase the interest rate. Now, what does that mean for the common man at a time like this is really what the conversation should be going around, because we know with electricity being an issue, the issue of water presently, we saw what flooding is doing. And then we also look at the fact that inflation, not only is it on food, but also on transportation, because commuters are paying much more to transport their goods and services from one part of the country to another, and even from state to state. So we know that this is a conversation that lots of government agencies have to come together and also see on how we can actually avert these. What can we do looking at the irrigation farming? Because if we have lots of food to the flooding, then that means a lot needs to be done to look at irrigation farming. And it's surprising, going through some of the statistics where we saw that out of 100%, Nigeria is having just 1% mechanized farming. We're having 10% animal power, and then 89% human power. That means with the will I say the president saying that we have to go back to the farm, then we know that a lot needs to be done, because most of the goods we get from the market, most of the food we consume are actually being farmed by humans. Then that means a lot and lot needs to be done on mechanized farming. If we're having just 1% mechanized farming out of about 900 million hectares of land in Nigeria, then a lot of conversation needs to go through the agri sector. What will be done? Because we saw that in 2021, lots of medium and small scale farming have actually, excuse me, gone to shut their shops. So a lot needs to be done. Sorry, I need to take a break right now, and when we come back, we will continue on the conversation. Welcome back. It's still business and finance on Equa Television International. Sorry for that break. And we're actually looking at some of the inflation prices and how it has affected small and medium scale enterprises, have affected them. That we saw in Ghana recently, some shops, or most shops, have actually been shut down because of the inflation, the taxes being paid by most of these small businesses. And just recently, even today, CBN is actually looking at how they can initiate traders, keke napep riders, and even drivers on how they can use the e-Naira. And we know there's still a lot of awareness when it comes to the e-Naira, because not lots of people are actually aware on the application, how they have to use it, how they have to, the conversation back and forth on how they need to do lots of things, on how people need to learn about the e-Naira. Because I'm very certain that even most educated people are yet to understand more detail about the e-Naira, and that is why the CBN have actually moved, further and seen how they can actually educate traders, how they can educate. I think this is really, really a very great and applaudable initiative coming from the CBN. But I think a lot needs to also go into making sure that Nigerian youths are actually involved in the e-Naira, talking about how we can actually harness the digital space. From today, we'll be looking at Nigeria will be actually hosting, because we are having a long week from today till next week Monday, where we'll be looking at the awareness on literacy and digital usages. And it's very, very important at a point like this that we know how to use it, how it can be applied. So I think a lot needs to be done on harnessing that digital space, because a lot of money is there. No wonder we have lots of our youth going illegally into the Yahoo plus and Yahoo itself. So it's because the energy has not yet been channeled properly. So I hope that with the initiative that have been brought in by the CBN on making sure traders, keke napep drivers and everybody, both the medium, the large and small scale enterprises, will actually harness the digital space, and we can actually tap a lot from that space to actually improve not only our own economy but also to improve the lives of Nigerians. It's really, really very, very important at a point like this, and I hope that won't just stop in making sure that just end at that awareness there, but that it will go to every hook and crannies of the nation, and how we need to use the digital space is very, very important at a point like this. Well, I think rather at this moment I have to round up on the show Business and Finance. Thank you so much for keeping the date with us. Until we come your way again next week Monday, follow us on all our social media platforms, and you can actually drop your comment on any of the issue you feel we have to touch on the show. Do have a blessed day ahead.